Hi everyone, in this video, I'm going to show you how to divide decimal numbers. Now before we go over how to divide decimal numbers, I want to review some basic concepts with you because we're going to use some specific math vocabulary throughout the whole tutorial video. So the first thing I want to review are the four math terms: dividend, divisor, quotient, and remainder. So for example, if we have 12 divided by 3 equals 4, then the dividend is 12, the divisor is 3, and the quotient is 4. And in this case, we don't have a remainder, and I'll show you with long division on the side. So we will write 12 inside and the divisor 3 outside. And since 4 3's goes into 12, we write 4 on top of 2 because there's a ones place. 3 times 4 is 12, so we write 12 here, and 12 minus 12 is 0, so the remainder is 0, which means there's no remainder. And the second example is if we have 13 divided by 3, then we want to write 13 inside and 3 outside. And first of all, we know that 13 is the dividend and 3 is the divisor. So we have 4 3's goes into 13. So again, we're going to write 4 on top of 3 at the ones place, and 3 times 4 is 12. 13 minus 12 is 1. So in this case, our remainder is 1, and to show it horizontally, I can also write 13 divided by 3 equals 4R1, meaning it equals 4 but with a remainder of 1. Okay, so now that we have some basic knowledge of division, I'm going to show you some simple examples first. I will show you how to divide a decimal number by a whole number, how to divide a whole number by a decimal number, and also how to divide two decimal numbers together. So the first example is 0.4 divided by 2. So with long division, I'm going to first write 0.4 inside and 2 outside. Since there are 0, 2 goes into 0, I'm going to write 0 on top of on the ones place. And then I copy down the decimal point. Now, 4 tenths divided by 2 is 2 tenths. So I'm going to write 2 on top of 4. And 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to copy down 4. 4 minus 4 is 0, or you can think of it as 0.4 minus 0.4 is 0. And now we divide this completely. We know that the answer is 0.2. So the next problem is 4 divided by 0.2. Now, if you write 4 inside and 0.2 outside, and you think about how many 2 tenths goes into 4, that's going to take you a long time. So the rule of dividing numbers like this is, first, you want to change the divisor into a whole number. But in order to do that, you also need to do the same thing for the dividend. So we know that another way to write division is by writing as fraction. So we can also write this as 4 over 0.2. And if we want to change the divisor, which is 0.2, into a whole number, we know that we need to multiply 0.2 by 10, which gives us 2. But we also have to do the same thing on top for the dividend. So 4 times 10 is 40. So what we're doing here essentially is we are multiplying 4 over 0.2 by 10 over 10, which is equivalent to 4 over 0.2 by 1. So according to the identity property of multiplication, we know that any quantity multiplied by 1 gives us the same quantity, so it doesn't change our result. And that's why we can do it this way. And you might seen that somewhere else before, but what people sometimes do quickly is they just move their decimal point to the right until they get a whole number. And since here we only move one place to the right, we do the same thing for the 4. And that's how we get 40 here. So essentially we are dividing 40 by 2. And this should be pretty easy. So 2 2's goes into 4. We get 4 here. And we know that it's just 40 minus 40, which is 0. So we put a 0 here as well. So our answer is 20 for the second problem. So the third problem, we have a decimal number divided by another decimal number. And again, we want to change the divisor into a whole number. That means we need to do the same thing for the dividend. So I'm going to show you both ways. First, we're going to write 0.6, the dividend inside, and the divisor 0.3 outside. And to show you side by side, I'm also going to write 0.6 over 0.3. And we know that we need to multiply by a power of 10 so that we get a whole number 3. So 0.3 times 10 gives us 3. That means we need to multiply by 10 by 0.6 as well, and we get 6. So essentially we're going to move the decimal point one place to the right and do the same thing for the dividend. And basically we have 6 divided by 3, so the answer is 2. And lastly, we have 0.3 divided by 0.6, so this time the dividend is 0.3. The divisor that stays outside is 0.6. And we know that we need to multiply both the dividend and the divisor by the same power of 10. And again, here we're just multiplying 10 for both, and we get 3 divided by 6. Or if you want to show the work, you can write the arrow here. So we know that there's 0, 6 goes into 3, so we have to put a 0. And then we need to write a decimal point to the right of 3, because now we need to continue on the 10th place. So I'm going to add another 0 here. So 5, 6 goes into 30. So that means I need to write a 5 on top of this 0 here. And 5 times 6 is 30, so I'm going to write down 30. 30 minus 30 is 0. So that means our final answer for the fourth problem is 0.5. And if you think about this, 3 over 6 is basically 1 over 2. And 1 over 2 is 0.5. So the division rules are shown on top of this video. For the second half of this tutorial, I'm going to go over another 4 more complicated problems. The first problem is 54.4 divided by 1.4, a decimal number divided by a decimal number. So to follow rule number 1, we need to multiply the divisor by 10 so that we get whole number. That means we do the same thing for the dividend. So to show you with long division, we write 54.4 inside, 1.7 outside. Since we're multiplying both the dividend and the divisor by 10, we know that basically we are moving the decimal point one place to the right. And essentially, we are already doing rule number 2, which is divide by this as how we divide by whole number. So basically, we're dividing 544 by 17. All right, so there are 317 goes into 54, so we write 3 on top of the 4 here. We can't write anything on top 5 because there's not enough 17. Well, 17 is too big to go into 5. So we can also show the multiplication on the side. 17 times 3. We will get 3 times 7, which is 21. And we have 1 times 3 plus the 2, so we get 51. So that means we'll write 51 here. 54 minus 51 is 3. So we'll write 3 here, and it will bring down the 4. So we have 217 goes into 34. And we will have exactly 34. And 34 minus 34 is 0. So the answer of this problem is a whole number, 32. The next problem is to divide 6.74 by 3. And the direction says to find the quotient and round to the nearest thousands. So we can also review rounding right here. Now, if you look at the divisor, it's already a whole number, so that means we don't need to follow rule number 1. We can just go straight to rule number 2. So I'm going to first write down my long division. 6.74 inside, 3 outside. 6 ones divided by 3 is 2 ones. So 2 3's goes into 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. So we don't have to do anything. And then I'm going to basically copy down 7, 4. Now we also need to remember to copy down the decimal point as well. And we continue to divide on the 10th place. So 2 3's goes into 7. 2 times 3 is 6. And 7 minus 6 is 1. In fact, we don't have to copy down 4 yet. We just need to do it at each single place value, unless we have a 2-digit divisor. Alright, so we just need to copy down the 4. Now we have to think about how many 3 goes into 14. So that means you need to, if you are not familiar with multiples, you can also check multiplication chart. But we know that 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. That will be too big, so that means we can only pick 4. So 4 3's goes into 14. 3 times 4 is 12. 14 minus 14 is 2. So our remainder is 2. But the thing is, they want us to round to the thousands place. So we have to continue. So I'll recopy this to have more space. Now we have to continue. Well, so to do that, we just add another 0 on the thousands place. And then we copy, bring down this 0 here. And think about how many 3's goes into 20. So if you think about this, 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 7 is 21. That will be too big, so we go with 6. So 6 times 3 is 18. Copy it down. And 20 minus 18 is 2. And that means we have to continue. And now you can see the pattern. We're just going to keep getting 2, but we still want to get the next number so we can round. So again, I'm going to add another 0. And then bring down the 0 here. Alright, so we know that 6 3's goes into 20. So 3 times 6 is 18. And we have 2 again. And if you continue to do this, you will notice that the quotient as a repeating decimal is just 2.246666 with 6 repeating. Another way to write this is 2.24 with a bar notation on top of 6. But in the direction, it asks us to round to the thousands place. So we have to identify the thousands place first. Let me copy this number again to show you. we use the dot 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 to show that it keeps repeating or it continues. It does not terminate. Okay, so this is the 10th place, this is the 100th place, and this is the 1000th place. So whenever you're rounding number, you want to look at the number to the right of the place you are rounding. In this case, we want to round to up to this part. So we actually need to look at this number, which is 6. And based on the rounding rule, we know that if that number is equal to 5 or greater than 5, we need to round up. Since 6 is greater than 5, we need to round up. So our final answer of this problem is approximately 2.247 because we need to add a 1 to the 6 at the 1000th place. And if you see this symbol, it basically just means is approximately equal to. So whenever you're writing an estimated number as your final answer, you want to use this squiggly equal sign to show your final answer. The next problem is to divide 12.34 by 0.56. And for the final answer, you want to round it to the nearest hundreds. So to get started, we need to follow rule number 1 first by multiplying the divisor and dividend by the same power of 10 so that the divisor, which is 0.56, is a whole number. We can also show the work using long division. So we want to write the dividend inside and the divisor outside. And to make sure the divisor is a whole number, we need to multiply it by 100. So that means we also need to multiply the dividend by 100. Basically, it means we need to move the decimal point to the right for 2 places. And we are essentially dividing 1,234 by 56. So 0.56 goes into 1, 0.56 goes into 12, but we can divide 123 by 56. So in this case, we can try out 2 first and see if it works. Actually, let me show it vertically. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. I think that should be enough. So I'm going to write 2 on top and copy down 112. So 123 minus 112, we get 3 minus 2 is 1, 2 minus 1 is 1, which is good enough because 11 is less than 56. And then we are going to bring down the 4. And it looks like we can just write 2 again because 2 times 56 is 112. That means we will have 2 left over. So I'm going to write 2 here, write down 112, and we get 2 left over. And then we still have to continue because our final answer has to be rounded to the nearest hundreds. Whenever you see direction like this, you should already know or assume that this will be either a really long decimal number or a repeating, non-terminating decimal numbers. So now that we already get to the ones place, we need to continue to the tenths place. So that means I need to add decimal point and continue dividing. Alright, so I will continue to add a 0 here, bring it down. Now, there's not enough to divide because we have 0.56 goes into 20, so we add another 0 and continue dividing. And whenever you see that there's not enough, you know that it's 0, you should already write a 0 here on top. Okay, so we definitely can divide 200 by 56, and we can try out the numbers. And we know that 50 times 4 is about 200, so definitely it can't be 4. Let's try 3 and see if it works. So 56 times 3 gives us 18. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 plus 1 is 16. Looks good enough to me. So I'm going to write down 3 here and then write down 168. So 200 minus 168. We can also review a little bit subtraction here, right? So 0 minus 8, we don't have enough. So we need to borrow a 1. But it looks like we still have a 0 here. So we need to continue to borrow from 2. So basically we're borrowing 1 from 20 and we will have 19. And this becomes 10. So 10 minus 8 is 2. 19 minus 16 is 3. So 200 minus 168 is 32. And we only get to the hundreds place. We should just do one more and it will let us round. So we are going to add another 0 and continue. And copy down the 0 here. And we have to think about how many 56 goes into 320. And we can try out the numbers again. So we know that 50 times 6 is about 300. So let's try 6 and see if it works, right? So 56 times 6, let's see if it's greater than or smaller than 320. 6 times 6 is 36. 5 times 6 is 30. We will have 336. That will be too big. So that means we need to multiply 56 by 5. Actually, let me write vertically again. So 56 times 5. 5 times 6 is 30. And 5 times 5 is 25. 25 plus 3 is 28. So we're going to write 5 here. And then we're going to copy down the 280. And 0 minus 0 is 0. We borrow a 1 here. We get 12. So 12 minus 8 is 4. And we have a remainder of 40. We don't have to continue because the direction says we need to round to the nearest hundreds. If you want to show your answer without rounding but not showing too many decimal values, you can just write equals to 22.035 ... But we need to follow the direction by rounding. So we're going to write is approximately equal to 22.04. So notice how I changed the 3 to 4 because the 5 at the thousands place is exactly 5. So we still have to round up. So we need to add 1 to the 3 at the hundreds place. So our final answer is 22.04. Okay, this is the last problem. We are going to divide 0.78 by 5.6 and the direction says to round the answer to the nearest tenths. So follow the first rule. We want to make sure the divisor is a whole number. That means we need to multiply both numbers by 10. And I'm going to show you using long division. 0.78 stays inside, 5.6 stays outside. And basically we are moving the decimal point one place to the right. So essentially we are dividing 7.8 by 56. Okay, so let's look at 7 first. 0.56 goes into 7, so we write 0 on top. Then we copy the decimal point, and we definitely have 156 goes into 78, so I'm going to write down 1. 1 times 56 is 56. If you write 2, that you will get a number that's bigger than 78, so we don't want that. 8 minus 6 is 2. 7 minus 5 is 2. So that's good enough because we know that 22 is less than 56. Now we still have to continue to divide because we only finished the 10th place. We need to at least get another number on the 100th place so we can round. So I'm going to add another 0 at the 100th place, bring it down. So I have 220. And we have to think about how many 56 goes into 220. So if you think about this, 50 times 4 is 200. Maybe we can try 4 first. So 56 times 4, 4 times 6 is 24, 4 times 5 is 20, 20 plus 2 is 22. So it looks like this number is too big because it's greater than 220, so we need to multiply by 3 instead. And we can show it on the side. So 56 times 3. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 plus 1 is 16. And we're going to copy it down. Now we're going to subtract and see if we have a remainder that's smaller than 56. So we need to borrow a 1 and make this 10. So 10 minus 8 is 2. And we still don't have enough because 1 minus 6, we don't have enough. So we need to borrow a 1. And we get 11 here. So 11 minus 6 is 5. 1 minus 1 is 0. So 52 is less than 0. The remainder is less than the divisor. So it definitely works. So that means if we were to write the quotient as a non-terminating decimal, is 0.13 ... But we want to round to the nearest tenths. So it's at this place right here. And if you look at the place to the right, which is 3, it's less than 5. So we don't need to round up. Just keep the same number. And the final answer of this problem is approximately equal to 0.1.